Hi everyone, as more and more of my friends are getting dropper posts for their bikes, I came across this one. This is a Raceface Turbine Dropper post. That is not a hydraulic post, as you probably know. It uses the 9.8 technology, the drop lock. The box is held together by this sleeve, and once you remove it, it's just a black box. The only usable information is on this end. Made in Taiwan, dropper post turbine. Information about it is 31.6 diameter, 350 millimeter overall length, and 100 millimeter drop. As we open the black box, here's the dropper, all black inside. The dropper is held in place by that piece of cardboard, and here it is. So 2-bolt head. You have nice indicator here of the tilt. Maximum torque. Raceface turbine as we know it. This seems to be laser etched. You have insertion indicators here. Minimum insertion point, and this is minimum insertion is 8.5 centimeters. And you can see down here drop lock technology by 9.8. Compared to the full line, this lower tube looks identical. This head area here looks the same. It probably needs the same type of lubrication. Looking down a bit more, obviously different markings. The actuator, it's screwed in right here, and this looks exactly the same, just the color difference. 9.8 provides this innovative type of head that also provides you a 20 mil offset if you need it. The turbine is just a simple 2-bolt head design. Quick start guide that should show us a little bit about how to get this installed. You have what it is, the actuation assembly. Also in here is a full length of housing. Okay, has the cable furrows at both ends. You're only going to need to use one of them. This is 1.6 meters long. The inner cable, it's 1.7 meters long. They will connect to your remote over here. This is what they call the universal remote. Bar clamp, 2-piece, so pretty easy to install. This has a little spring that brings it back. And this is the noodle that comes with it. Noodle gets installed right here in the back, something like that, and you have this barrel at the end of it. This allows you to adjust the tension on your cable housing. Dropper with cables and remote, standard remote, is 567 grams. Just by itself, 472 grams. The installation doesn't need much more than a few Allen keys and a cable cutter. But before you do that, I would just grab a tape measure, go to the bike that you are installing this on, and measure a couple of things. First, you want to know the distance between the rails, the saddle rails, to the top of the collar over here. And just to make it easier for you afterwards, just measure the distance between the tip of the nose and your stem. First step in installation is going to be to find a suitable spot for your remote. All you need is a 3mm Allen key. Remove that little screw. This is a 2-piece clamp design, so I don't have to remove the grip. Nicely textured, not just painted, but it was hitting the front shifter, so I had to move that inboard. Also, keep in mind that you have the noodle coming here in the back. In my case, I routed it nicely right along the brake cylinder right there. Next is going to be the cable routing. In this case, the cable port is right here. With the cable routed through the frame, we have to install the actuator assembly. So you are talking about cable seal nut. This one goes in first. Then you have the actual T-nut. This gets pushed in here. And the actuator assembly, this goes over the cable and will be threaded at the end of that cable housing. At this point, with no inner cable, we're ready to measure the length of the cable housing. So grab your dropper, hold on to the actuator assembly, and just thread in the dropper by hand. There's no need to thread in this cable seal nut at this point. Actually, you can leave this out if you are space constrained inside the frame. Measure the distance between the saddle rail and the top of your seat clamp here. In my case, I need to bring it down all the way. The other end of the cable is going to take a cable ferrule, connect it to the noodle and into your remote, and just make sure that you have the proper cable length in here to allow for free movement of your handlebar. Cable housing is set, so time to remove the dropper again. With the cable housing the correct length, most probably you have to remove the remote from the handlebar. Feed the cable through it, just like this. Then you feed it through the noodle. Just make sure there's a plastic lining in there. You feed it right through it. Then finally, feed the cable through your cable housing. On the quick connect at the other end, just make sure you loosen up these the two set screws over there evenly, and then you push the cable through it. So as you push the cable through, so this would not be correct routing, you want to push it through in between the two screws. So just like that. With the cable tight everywhere along the way, just make sure that you push this T-nut up to line up with your little white line here on the quick connect. And in that position, all you have to do now is use your 2mm Allen key just to tighten up the two bolts. You tighten up the two bolts evenly, making sure that they don't protrude out at all from the surface of the actuator here. Last step here is just to trim the inner cable. Make sure you don't leave more than about a couple of millimeters up top. And at this point you're ready to install the dropper properly. So hold on to the actuator and turn the dropper. Hold on to the dropper, rotate the cable seal nut till it stops. Push the cable through the frame, and now you can zip tie it nicely in place. Dropper installed. Oh, works just fine. Now the last thing I want to do is actually remove this head and just make sure you have the right pressure in there. More pressure in this case gives you faster extension of the dropper. At the bottom of the saddle rails you have this rubber cap that seems to just plug right in, just covering your Schrader valve. So push that right in. And then you have an actual direction here. You see the arrow. Then you have your two screws. These are 4mm Allen keys, and maximum torque for them, it's 8 Newton meters. And that is pretty much the installation of the dropper. You see it functioning just fine. So what do I think about this dropper? Well, first of all, if you use the information on this quick start guide, you're going to get it installed. It's a bit cryptic, but it's pretty much all the steps that you need to get it done. When it comes to maintenance, and yes, this is going to need maintenance, you're going to need to re-grease at least this seal over here. They recommend using Slickoleum or Slick Honey. 9point8 recommends using theirs. It's up to you what you have, what you want to use. Because they use the mechanical brake here in the tube, you can actually lift this bike onto the saddle regardless of the position of the dropper, and that won't damage anything. So that's a feature that I love for this technology, among other things. I'm not too crazy about the lever. I think it's pretty big. It works well in this kind of setup. Because it uses a mechanical brake, it needs that little bit of play here on the cable. If it's too tight, your drop lock is not going to engage. Also, if you expose this dropper to huge temperature swings, what you might find is that it might slip down a little bit or not hold properly. In that case, you might want to do a brake reset. The brake reset is actually fairly simple to do. You just push down the remote all the way, hold it down for 5 to 10 seconds, and you're good to go. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this, guys. I think it should be a decent dropper. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to keep an eye on my channel, subscribe, and follow me on social media. And until next time, I will see you on the trails, guys. Cheers.